Welcome to tonight's story, where we'll journey together into a world of calm and quiet reflection. As you settle into your bed, feel the weight of your day begin to lift with each breath you take. Let the gentle rhythm of your breathing soothe you, slowly easing you into a state of peaceful relaxation. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and feel the soft embrace of the night around you, cradling you in its warmth. Tonight, we explore The Lighthouse Beyond the Fog, a tale that invites you to wander with a quiet lighthouse keeper on an island veiled in mist. As you listen, let the fog wrap around you too, softening the edges of your thoughts and allowing your mind to drift away like the fog rolling across the sea. This story is more than just a tale. It's a journey of discovery and solace. The lighthouse keeper's voyage through fog and isolation mirrors the calmness of your own inner world. With each moment, you'll find yourself unwinding deeper, your body growing heavier, your mind clearer. As the keeper seeks answers on the edge of the world, let yourself find peace, surrendering to the gentle ebb and flow of the story and the soft rhythm of the night. So, breathe deeply and know that everything will be okay. There's no need to rush, no need to think ahead. Tonight, all that matters is the here and now. Let the story take you away, one peaceful moment at a time. The lighthouse stood solitary and steadfast, perched on a jagged cliff overlooking an endless ocean veiled in mist. For as long as Lorien could remember, the fog had been their only companion. Day after day, the soft, rhythmic hum of the great lens turning overhead filled the air, its beams slicing through the haze with slow, deliberate sweeps. It was a lifeline for any ship daring enough to brave the fog-covered seas, though Lorien couldn't recall the last time a vessel had passed near the island. The keeper's routine was as unchanging as the tide. Each morning, they climbed the narrow staircase to check the mechanism that powered the lighthouse, ensuring it ran smoothly. They polished the glass to maintain its brilliance and hauled up oil for the lamp. Afternoons were spent patching weathered parts of the structure or tending a small, windswept garden behind the stone tower. Evenings were for reading old, water-stained books, remnants of the previous keeper's library. Though Lorien never left the island, their mind often drifted beyond it. What lay past the shroud of fog? Sometimes they imagined bustling cities, verdant coasts, or distant lands filled with sights they could scarcely fathom. Other times, they wondered if there was anything at all, a terrifying expanse of nothingness that stretched on forever. But one night, as they lay in their small cot beneath the spiraling stairs, something changed. Whispers seeped into the quiet. Soft, almost melodic, they seemed to drift through the very walls of the lighthouse. At first, Lorien dismissed them as the sounds of the wind or the creak of old wood settling. But the whispers grew persistent. Night after night, they returned, their words tantalizingly close, but just out of reach. One phrase, however, always came through clearly. The argent wraith lies beyond the fog. The whispers tugged at Lorien's thoughts until they could no longer ignore them. The argent wraith. The name stirred a memory. A passage in a tattered book about a ship laden with treasure, lost to the sea and shrouded in legend. Some said it had been cursed, its crew condemned to wander endlessly. Others claimed it held secrets so dangerous they had to be hidden forever. Lorien could feel the fog's weight pressing in on their mind. The isolation they had endured for so long now felt unbearable. Perhaps this shipwreck was their purpose, a reason to venture beyond the island. Preparation for the journey was swift. The rowboat, rarely used, was hauled down to the shore. Lorien packed provisions, dried fish, hard biscuits, and fresh water drawn from the island's spring. They brought a lantern to pierce the mist, a sturdy rope, and an old compass, though they doubted it would prove reliable in the magical fog. As dawn broke, Lorien stood on the rocky beach, the lighthouse's beam fading in the growing light. They placed their hands on the weathered wood of the boat, taking one last look at the island that had been their entire world. Then, with a deep breath, they pushed off into the unknown. The first few hours were uneventful. The rhythm of the oars cutting through the water was soothing, almost hypnotic. The fog pressed close, a pale wall on all sides, muting every sound except the soft creak of the boat. Lorien found themselves drifting into a meditative state, the endless gray stretching their thoughts into strange shapes. And then came the voices. They started faintly, as though carried on a distant breeze. Lorien paused mid-stroke, letting the oars rest in the water. The voices were clearer than before, though no less mysterious. "Turn back," one whispered, low and mournful, sending a shiver down Lorien's spine. "Keep going," another urged, insistent and eager, pulling at some deep part of Lorien's heart. The voices overlapped, a haunting chorus that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Lorien scanned the fog, searching for shapes or movement, but there was nothing. Only the endless, swirling gray. With a shaky breath, they gripped the oars again and pressed forward. The voices grew louder as the hours passed, their tones shifting between urgency and sorrow. They spoke of the sea, of journeys lost and treasures hidden. Lorien felt as though they were being drawn into a story, one where they were not merely the seeker, but also the sought. Time slipped away, as it often did in the fog. Was it morning? Evening? Lorien could no longer tell. Hunger gnawed at their stomach, but they couldn't bring themselves to stop rowing. Something lay ahead. They could feel it, a pull stronger than any current. And then, through the haze, a faint light appeared. It shimmered golden and warm, a beacon unlike the pale, cold glow of the lighthouse. Lorien's pulse quickened. With trembling hands, they adjusted course, rowing toward the light. The light resolved into the shore of an unfamiliar island, its sands glittering faintly as though imbued with starlight. Lorien's boat scraped against the beach, and they stepped onto the warm sand, their boots sinking slightly with each step. The island was unlike anything Lorien had ever seen. Towering trees with crystalline leaves swayed in a breeze that couldn't be felt. Strange flowers bloomed in vivid, unnatural hues, their petals glowing softly in the dim light. The air was thick with a heady, sweet scent that made Lorien feel both exhilarated and uneasy. As they wandered deeper into the island, the voices grew louder, blending with the rustling of leaves to form an eerie symphony. The whispers seemed to guide Lorien, drawing them toward the center of the island. There, amidst a clearing bathed in soft light, stood a pool of water so still and clear it looked like polished glass. At its center stood a figure, a woman cloaked in flowing silver, her hair cascading like liquid moonlight. Her eyes met Lorien's, and they felt a jolt of recognition, though they were certain they had never seen her before. "Why have you come?" she asked, her voice melodic and timeless. "I'm looking for the Argent Wraith," Lorien replied, their voice unsteady. "The shipwreck beyond the fog." The woman's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "You seek the shipwreck, but it is not treasure you will find. The fog hides many truths, and not all are kind." Lorien opened their mouth to ask what she meant, but before they could, the woman stepped backward, disappearing into the pool as though it were made of mist. The water rippled once, then stilled, leaving only Lorien's reflection staring back. The encounter with the silver-cloaked woman lingered in Lorien's mind as they left the island. Her cryptic words echoed like a tune they couldn't quite place, intertwining with the steady rhythm of the oars as they rowed back into the fog. The crystalline trees, the luminous flowers, and the golden sand were soon swallowed by the ever-present mist, leaving only the ghostly pale void stretching endlessly in all directions. The fog seemed denser now, its edges swirling like tendrils of smoke. Time lost its grip on Lorien entirely. They rowed, rested, and rowed again, unable to gauge how far they had come. It was as though they were suspended in a realm untouched by the passage of hours. The voices were different now, no longer distinct whispers, but a medley of sounds that ebbed and flowed like the tide. Some were joyful, ringing out with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Others were sorrowful, low moans and mournful sighs that prickled Lorien's skin. And then there were the cries, sharp, urgent calls that set their heart racing, though no faces appeared to explain their urgency. Shapes began to emerge within the fog, faint at first, like shadows cast on water. Lorien squinted, trying to make sense of them. They saw towering masts swaying as though caught in a breeze, but when they blinked, they were gone. A low hum vibrated through the air, and for a fleeting moment, Lorien thought they saw sails billowing high above, pale and translucent as ghosts. "What is this place?" they murmured to no one. The fog answered in its own way. A cold wind brushed against Lorien's face, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and decay. The mist around them grew darker, shifting from pale gray to an ominous charcoal hue. The water below seemed to deepen as well, its surface turning to a slick, black mirror that reflected nothing of the boat or its lone occupant. For the first time, Lorien felt the weight of fear. This was not the same fog that had blanketed their island, passive and unchanging. This fog was alive, coiling and stretching like a living thing. The voices grew louder, a cacophony that seemed to press against Lorien's very skin. They clamped their hands over their ears, but the sounds persisted, vibrating through their bones. "Help us!" one cried. "Leave while you can!" screamed another. And then, cutting through the chaos, a single voice rang clear, sharp and commanding. "Come!" Lorien's hands fell away from their ears. The voice carried a weight that drew them forward, a pull that was impossible to resist. They took up the oars once more, their arms trembling with both effort and trepidation. As they rowed, the darkness parted like a curtain, revealing something that made Lorien gasp. The ship was enormous, its silhouette a jagged specter against the unearthly glow of the fog. Its once grand masts stood fractured, splintered like bones stripped bare. Tattered sails hung limply from the rigging, their edges frayed as though gnawed by unseen teeth. The hull was encrusted with barnacles and streaked with rust, giving the vessel the appearance of having risen from the depths of the ocean itself. The water around the ship was unnaturally still, reflecting the argent wraith in perfect, eerie clarity. Lorien's boat drifted closer, drawn by an invisible force. They shivered as the air turned colder, the scent of salt giving way to something earthier, like damp wood and mildew. As the boat bumped gently against the ship's side, Lorien hesitated. The deck above loomed like a shadowed cliff, its edges lined with ropes that hung limp, swaying ever so slightly. A frayed ladder dangled nearby, and after a moment of hesitation, they grasped it. The rope felt rough and damp beneath their fingers as they climbed, each step echoing faintly in the oppressive silence. When Lorien reached the deck, they paused, their breath catching in their throat. The ship was a mausoleum, frozen in time. Broken barrels and crates littered the planks, their contents spilling out like offerings to the sea. Rusted tools lay abandoned, their edges dulled by years of exposure. The faint impression of hurried footsteps was still visible in the thick layer of salt and dust that covered the wood. And yet, there was no sign of life. Lorien moved cautiously, each step a creak against the eerie stillness. The ship felt impossibly large, its dimensions shifting in a way that made them question whether they were walking a few paces or miles. The air grew heavier with every step, and the whispers returned, closer now, surrounding Lorien like a phantom crowd. "Here," one voice murmured, soft and beckoning. "Further," another insisted, harsher this time. Lorien descended into the belly of the ship, following the voices. The narrow corridors twisted and turned like a labyrinth, their walls lined with warped wood that wept streams of brine. Lanterns, long extinguished, hung crookedly from their mounts, casting faint, wavering shadows. At last, Lorien came upon a door. It was larger than any they had passed, its surface carved with intricate patterns of waves and stars. The wood shimmered faintly, as though touched by moonlight. Without thinking, they reached out and pushed it open. Inside was the captain's quarters, a space both grand and eerie. A heavy desk sat at its center, papers strewn across its surface, their ink smeared into illegible patterns. Maps hung on the walls, depicting lands that Lorien didn't recognize. An ornate mirror stood at the far end of the room, its frame gilded with swirling designs of sea serpents and crashing waves. It was the mirror that drew Lorien forward. Its surface was unlike any they had seen before, not reflective, but alive. It rippled like liquid silver, shifting and swirling as if in conversation with some unseen force. When Lorien stood before it, the rippling stilled, and the silver cleared. What they saw was not their own reflection, but a memory. The surface of the mirror shimmered, its silvery depths swirling before clearing to reveal a scene from long ago. Lorien leaned closer, their breath shallow as the image took shape. A lighthouse stood proudly on the cliff's edge, but it was not cloaked in fog as Lorien remembered. The skies were clear, a brilliant expanse of blue stretching endlessly above. The waves below sparkled with sunlight, crashing playfully against the rocks. And the island, Lorien's island, was alive. People bustled about, tending to their work with an energy that was almost palpable. Fishermen hauled in nets teeming with fish, their laughter carried on the wind. A group of children darted along the shoreline, chasing each other in a game, their high-pitched giggles rising above the roar of the waves. In the center of it all stood the lighthouse, its light steady and strong, a beacon of safety and guidance. But it was not Lorien who tended it. Not yet. A group of keepers worked together, their movements practiced and efficient. Among them, Lorien spotted a younger version of themselves, their face lit with joy as they carried a bundle of supplies up the spiral staircase. The mirror rippled, and the scene shifted. The sky darkened, heavy clouds rolling in from the horizon. The waves turned violent, battering the island with relentless fury. The once cheerful voices turned to shouts of alarm as the storm descended, its ferocity unmatched. Lorien saw themselves again, older this time, rushing to secure the lighthouse against the onslaught. And then came the fog. It rolled in like a living thing, thick and unyielding, swallowing the island whole. The cries of the villagers faded, one by one, until there was nothing but silence. The scene blurred, and when it cleared, Lorien stood alone on the cliff, the lighthouse behind them, and the endless fog stretching out to the horizon. The mirror shimmered again, its surface rippling as if in sympathy. This time, the image was not of the past, but something else entirely. The fog-covered island was unchanged, but it was no longer a place of despair. Instead, Lorien saw themselves tending the light with a quiet determination. They saw ships passing in the distance, their sails gliding just beyond the reach of the fog. Lorien's hand moved to the lighthouse's great lens, polishing it until it gleamed, the beam cutting through the mist like a knife. The vision seemed to tell a story without words. It showed the lighthouse as more than a structure. It was a promise, a lifeline for those who dared to venture through the treacherous fog. And Lorien, its keeper, was not merely isolated, but entrusted with a sacred duty. As the vision faded, Lorien felt a strange sense of peace. The loneliness they had carried for years began to shift, its weight lessened by the understanding that they were not forgotten, nor forsaken. They had been chosen, in a way, to guard the light and to ensure that the island remained a beacon for the lost and the weary. The mirror's surface stilled, its glow fading until it was nothing more than a tarnished relic. Lorien stepped back, their chest heavy with emotion. They had come searching for the Argent Wraith, for answers about the fog and their isolation. They had found not a treasure, but something far more profound, a truth about themselves and their purpose. When Lorien climbed back to the deck, the fog was different. It no longer pressed against them with its suffocating weight. Instead, it seemed to shimmer, the edges tinged with a faint golden light. The ship beneath their feet groaned softly, and Lorien realized it was dissolving, its timbers turning to mist. They hurried back to the rowboat, lowering themselves into it just as the last remnants of the Argent Wraith faded into the air. The voices were gone now, replaced by a deep and resonant silence. Lorien rowed toward the faint outline of the lighthouse, its beam cutting through the fog like a warm embrace. The water was calm, the oars moving easily through its surface. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the oppressive stillness of the fog had lifted, replaced by a sense of possibility. As they neared the island, Lorien noticed something that made their heart swell. Ships dotted the horizon, their sails bright against the pale mist. They moved with purpose, their hulls cutting through the water as if guided by an unseen hand. When Lorien's boat scraped against the familiar shore, they stepped out and stood for a moment, gazing at the lighthouse. Its light burned brightly, steady and unwavering. The fog still lingered at the edges of the island, but it no longer felt like a prison. It was a guardian, a veil that protected the island and its keeper from the chaos beyond. Lorien climbed the spiral staircase one last time, their footsteps echoing softly in the tower's hollow core. At the top, they stood before the great lens, running their hands over its smooth surface. The beam swept out across the sea, its glow a reminder to all who ventured near that they were not alone. The fog had taken much from Lorien, but it had also given them something in return: clarity, purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that even in isolation, their light mattered. And so, as the waves lapped against the rocks below and the ships sailed into the horizon, Lorien kept their silent vigil. The lighthouse stood, steadfast as ever, a beacon not just for the lost, but for those searching for a truth they might not yet understand. As our journey through the lighthouse beyond the fog comes to a close, I invite you to take one last deep breath, feeling the weight of your body sinking deeper into the softness of your bed. The lighthouse keeper's story has unfolded, their journey of solitude and discovery now complete. Just as they found peace in their purpose, you too can find tranquility in the stillness of the night. Feel the calmness surrounding you, gently guiding you toward rest. The warmth of the lighthouse's light, steady and reassuring, mirrors the peaceful light within you, constant, ever-present, and unwavering. Allow your thoughts to quiet, the soft glow of the story fading into the background of your mind. The fog has lifted, leaving behind only the peaceful sounds of the ocean, the gentle whisper of waves against the shore, and the soft hum of the world around you. There's nothing more to do now, no worries to hold on to. You are safe. You are at peace. So, let yourself drift into the comfort of sleep, knowing that this moment is yours. With each breath, you move closer to the calm and restful place where dreams await. Your mind is free, your body relaxed, and your spirit light. Sleep well, and may your dreams be as gentle as the fog, soft and serene.